life can be so challenging. Where can you go to get divine clarification, help, and advice? Well, may I introduce Natasha Venter, medium coach and direct connection to your guides and angels. Through her podcast, Life Clarifications, Natasha will help you navigate through and create your life's destiny. My name is Kevin McDonald, co-host of this podcast, and I've seen her work and know that through her incredible talent, you can be changed forever. So let's start another episode of Life Clarifications with Natasha. And welcome everybody to another episode of Life Clarifications with Natasha. And by the way, Natasha is a psychic medium and a life coach, and she operates a site called angelicclarifications.com. And it's right there on the explanation so that you can go there if you want to. She is celebrating something that only happens once every 30 years, which is pretty cool. Congratulations from all of us that are listening with you.
Thank you.
30 years is quite an achievement.
It is. I feel like, like I was telling my husband, because this is our 30-year anniversary. Actually, yesterday was, but we're on a trip to Ocean Shores. So that's why you're seeing me in a different surroundings. That I would think that anybody who gets it to this mark can pat themselves on the back. Because like I was telling my husband yesterday, it's not that I don't, 30 years, 10 years, but there's something about this mile marker. It's like, even when you're driving, the mile marker, it's like you've gone a distance. And, you look back at who we were at the beginning, the innocence of, 23-year-olds, who actually were on our second marriage by that time, doing the work we needed to do, there was an innocence to the technicalities that would come forth in a relationship that was going to last this long. And like I posted on Facebook yesterday, I kind of did a statement saying that, I was grateful that, everything that has happened, because in our marriage, we've had job changes, my whole family passed away. We've had children, and the children haven't been the problem, but there's been some scenarios, like my older was kind of quieter and energetically challenged a little bit. So like sometimes when, I couldn't take him I had to pick him up and back and forth to school, because riding the bus was just too stimulating for him. Actually staying in class sometimes was too stimulating for him, but he had his feet on the ground. He didn't have a lot of the autistic type symptoms. He just energetic, but all my family has some kind of intuitiveness to them, and they don't realize that at that time, and then my second one just had a little bit more, scenarios with depression, like my husband, and that does run in the family. And so there's some scenarios there, and school wasn't always the easiest thing. And, some people come into this world with just a little bit more, stepping stones in the way that you trip over, and then there's others that just kind of do it a little more gracefully. And I had one of each children, no right or wrong on either side. I love them both, not the same, because I can't love my older the same as I love my younger, but I love them equally. I can't say that one is heavier than the other or that kind of thing. And then, you have, and my wonderful younger child decided that he wanted to be transgendered into a female, and now binary. And so with that there's these things that stepped in. And then, you have on top of that where my husband now is 8 years sober. And I said that in my post, not all, to that detail, but, hit the high points. And you don't realize at the beginning of a marriage, you're going to go through stuffing, it's stuffing. And sometimes it's not happy, and sometimes it's joyous. And, when we're doing those types of things, it's amazing how the years go by. And then all of a sudden we're here 30 years later looking back going, holy crumb, you know. And then I made a post at the end of it saying how I was grateful for the friendships and the people in our lives, because without their teamwork with us, I don't know if we would have made it. The
It's hard.
friends, the family, that it does take a team sometimes to take a child when you guys need, when a couple needs that break, or, that you have someone that can just listen to an ear of a rough moment, knowing that if you just speak it out, you can get to the other side of it.
Hmm.
And so that's one of those things that I think that people try to do life too much by themselves, and it does take a team. And they just take vulnerability. And I can tell you, I don't know how many restart buttons I pushed in my marriage. Came 2 times when it was like going, where do we go from here? Reset button. Okay, let's try. Let's try to get some enthusiasm. Let's try to have better communication. Let's try to, not necessarily be about me, but let's step the 50-yard mark, let's step 45 into somebody else's, or, the 55 into somebody else's, and then the 55 into somebody else. It's like, let's try to just be a little bit more over, instead of just trying to say, this is my side, this is your side. It's that, trying to step over just a little bit, just to say, I'm thinking about you, I'm conscious of you. And when we push that reset button, it's amazing how that vulnerability can help us move forward. And I can say that that's what it's taken. And I'm going to say it, I'm probably not done touching the reset button, because we're completely different people.
Well,
He's
not only that, you are a completely different person than you were when he married you.
exactly.
So when
And people don't realize that. I'm not
it,
this person when I
but
married him.
the hard part is, and and you should be congratulated for keeping a relationship together for 30 years, because as people change over time, unless you can communicate effectively and
Hmm.
you keep each other and you keep the relationship in the center of what you're trying to accomplish, it oftentimes people drift apart. That's what happened to me. We just kind of drifted apart.
And at the same time, though, in relationships, there's always going to be these moments where individual growth has to happen, and then you come back together again. And individual growth is going to happen, and you come back together again. And that's that. Okay, I need those times. And it's as simple as my husband going and playing golf Saturday. He took a year or 3 or 4 in that mix of becoming his sobriety. Trying to find himself. Well, even before that, that he went golfing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday mornings every weekend. And I knew that that was his growth part. That was part of him internally growing. And if he didn't do that, and if I didn't allow that, then I would be stifling him, and we would be stifling our relationship. So there
You
again is those moments, even if it was just a weekend, it was that moment of individual growth to become better growing together.
you do get the fact that a lot of people aren't willing to do that.
Yes.
That is actually a pretty mature attitude on your part, because a lot of them people are would say, "Well, you don't want to spend any time with me. You're just good. I'm mad at you because you don't spend it." You recognized that the changes he was going through were very cataclysmic in his life.
Oh, it's a rewiring of the brain.
Yeah.
And it's not that it was right that he did that too, because there's times where it was like, well, I wish we could do something together. I went on a trip to Spain by myself because he didn't want to go, but that was my way of individually growing too. There was a huge platform that I stepped off onto when I went on that trip, and I don't know if I could have done that with him, because the experiences that I had were with the roommate I had, and the experiences I had were with the people I was interacting with, because I didn't have anybody else to interact with. So with that it wouldn't have been wrong for him to go, but it was more purposeful for me to learn those experiences by myself, because I came up with the mantra on that trip: how I perceive myself is how others perceive me. So if I perceive myself as shy, quiet, and less than, then other people are going to perceive me as shy, quiet, and less than. And the lesson is the less than is that huge, wait a minute, I'm not less than anybody else. So why am I perceiving myself as that?
That was wise. See, part of it is too, though. If you're going to go on a vacation like that, Spain's a fair part away, and it takes a lot of time in an airplane and all that stuff. If somebody isn't excited about it and it's drudgery, they could make a trip like that sheer hell.
And that's why he said no, because he knew, and I know that I love him, and I give him grace where he's troublesome. That there's this, I have troublesome spots in me too that he gives me grace with. And that's that thing about relationships, is that we're not always strong in all areas, and traveling is not one of his strengths. This trip here is one of the best trips we've had so far. So and we just started. So it's like,
well, you got lots of time for it to get better.
Well, no, it's actually really good. I'm happy. I'm grateful. I'm sitting in this moment of gratitude.
It can get better.
Yeah. Well, gratitude, it's like, if I stand in gratitude, it doesn't really matter what happens, because it's all like, I even told the front desk, thank you for letting our dog come, because not every place lets our dogs come. And so I'm just saying, thank you for letting her be here. It was just that whole part. Then my husband's not sitting there going, I wonder what's going on with my girl, because sometimes the dog is his girl more than I'm his girl.
Oh no. The whole different set of
I know, I'm giving a hard time.
You erase that now. It's gonna put up your etch a sketch and go like
this. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm making a funny, because that's a funny between the two of us.
No, I get it. I love my dog more. Wow, that's a whole other story. But so I'm glad you're having a good time, and it's really cool. 30 years, that I don't care who you are. That's a long time. That's really good.
You change a lot in 30 years. It's amazing how, depression, I know that depression runs on my husband's side of the family. And then with the loss of my family, I had to struggle with depression, and helping someone get through depression isn't always somebody's strength. And when we were doing that, it's amazing how, we become different people. That's what grief did to me. It changed who I was. It really changed who I was, because I was a shy, quiet person. I actually got an F because I wouldn't stand up in front of the class when I was in high school. And with getting married shortly after that, I was able to, the first marriage, I thought nobody would want to marry me. So that's why I married him. And then 3 years later, I ended up with my husband now. And with life coming forward and moving forward, and as we're going forward, it's amazing how, when we let life support us and shift us, it's amazing where we end up. I flipped the box over and I became me, and we are now doing the greater work that we've ever done. It's been amazing. His awakeness and my awakeness is becoming this magical couple. I'm just so happy for us.
Well, that's excellent. Now, I do want to make a comment here, and that is this, is that if you are listening to this, or if you're watching this, actually, which you might be doing right now, there's a little comment section over there in the upper right-hand corner. If you got a question to ask Jezebel over here, no, I'm kidding. If you got a question, you got a question for Natasha, we can. What I'll do is you type in the question, and I'll put it on the screen, and I'll read it for her so that she can answer a question that you have, or a comment. It can be either one, and we would appreciate that you participate with that. Also, it would be great if you were to put the sponsor thing in there. I must be tired. The not the sponsorship, but the like it and stuff like that. So if you would do that, that would be great fun. So again, this is Natasha Benner. She's got a website, and this is called Life Clarifications with Natasha. So let's clarify your life. Give us a comment so that we can talk to you about it.
And that's what I came on here for, is that this hour, where we try to stay within an hour, and that
We don't ever
this
succeed.
is where I would love to support people with questions and interests. If somebody has a question about how can you do something, how are you so in tuned with doing things, or any question that there is, that there's no, I would love to support that moment. And that's what we're wanting to do, is start doing mini readings on this show, because there's these moments where people are in need. And I know that a lot of people right now are in crosshairs of, what do I do? Where do I go? Which way do I go? And when somebody can just give them a little insight, it's amazing where, I never thought about that. Okay, I'll do that. And that's what I love to do. That is my purpose, is to support somebody going from here to there. And when somebody can,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and somebody can comment in, and you have the ability, because of your gifts, that you can zero in on who that is, correct?
Yes. Yes. And Kevin, I'm going to rely on you to do that, because I cannot on my phone. I don't want to play with my screen. I don't want to lose anything if I touch my screen. My car my car screen, where it has the navigation and everything, it already blinked out and blinked back on. So
Oh, okay.
so
Well,
I'm
no,
like, I'm not touching electronics unless I need to right now.
no, all you got to do, folks, ladies and gentlemen, ladies or gentlemen, or any of the above, just hit us with a comment, and I will put it on the screen and read it for Natasha, so that you and her can communicate that way. Now, there is one other way to communicate, which we could talk about, but it requires you to be on video, and I'm not sure how many of you are prepared for that today.
No. I'm hoping that with the comments, that people can give me enough to ask questions. And what I'm going to work on, because there's some people that watch this, and I know that I'm going to stop talking about somebody behind the scenes. That what the question is what's going to be answered. And with that, because I know that Sue sometimes is on, and she's been on the show before, so that's why I talk a little deeper about what I know a little bit about her. But there's other people that are on the show that I know that we're going to keep this, what is you're asking for, what do you need? And I want to make that clear, that your vulnerability doesn't need to be out on the streets here. Okay.
Well, what you can do, because we all have got issues, and our issues, you'd be amazed how remarkably similar they are. It's like I was going to mention earlier, that when Natasha said that her family and her husband's family had some dysfunctionality in it, and some depression and stuff, and it's like, I haven't met one yet that doesn't have something going on.
No. The depression I'm talking about is that my husband, he's had 3 uncles who've committed suicide.
What that means to me is that he's got 3 uncles. Is his dad still with us?
Yes.
That must just be a horrible thing for his dad.
Yeah. He's the last. My husband's dad is the last male left.
Oh.
And that's why I can talk about certain things, because now 2 of them committed suicide before I met my husband, so they've been gone quite a long time. There's many life experiences that I have walked through, even if it's not me personally walking through it, but I've walked through watching my family be destroyed by someone who committed suicide. That there's these moments where we all go through something, and I witness myself as I'm like, I made a post on my Facebook one day about stepping 1 foot into somebody else's shoes to kind of get a perspective of what's going on in their life. And that's what I do. I do that. I put one foot in somebody else's shoe, in somebody else's life, to get a perspective to say, oh, yeah, I get that. I get that. And when we can do that, excuse me, there's more ways that we can work with things and we can get that perspective differently. My intuitive work, this calling that I have, is to do that, to support people through their lives. So that's why I go with no judgments, because how can I judge when either I've done it in a past life or I've witnessed somebody else do it and I felt the ache, the shame, the disappointment, the hurt, the sadness, the ripple effect that goes through when somebody does something. It's amazing how life happens, and we try to do it, and not all of us are taught well to do it.
I would say virtually none of us are taught well to do it.
No.
It's all a matter of trying to figure it out and get it right, and that's how people get married, and they're fine and stuff, and then over time they drift apart. They're not interested. One or the other of them is less. I'm not saying they're not, but they're less interested in working it out and keeping it together and
Mhm.
hitting what you call the reset button. There are lots of folks that don't even have any idea where that button might be. So
Exactly.
so how do you, when you do that and you and your husband sit down and you decide that you're going to do a reset button, how do you do that and leave behind everything that was bothering you 10 minutes before?
And I'm going to talk about I here because that's the only way that I can navigate through this, that when I intentionally push a reset button in any relationship I have, friendships, husband, mother-in-law, parents, whatever that, my children, whatever that is setting forth, that when I have touched the reset button, I don't necessarily forget about the past. What I do is I release it enough that I can say, I'm going to try to do different next time it comes forth.
How do you release it then? I'm gonna
So I know that's where I'm going. So in other words, like if someone crosses a boundary, okay, and a boundary might be that they did something to me that was very personal, and it hurt the value, it hurt the trust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily forget about it. I just don't go into that vulnerability of telling them everything. I may tell them enough, and I tell them that, that hurts. That hurt my trust with you, that hurt us, and but I want to still be friends with you. I still want to work on this. We've had too many years, we've had too much relationship to make that one thing be the thing that stops our friendship. So then what I do is that I practice telling them something, and I don't go very deep into it. And I practice telling them something, and I don't go very much deep into it. And then I see if they come around and do the same thing again. And if they do the same thing again that hurt me so bad, we're done. But at the same time, though, if they learned from that experience, they'll start saying, wait a minute, I hurt her before. I'm not going to do that again. And that's that part of them working on it.
Yep. I get that, but it still astounds me because it takes not only forgiveness but forgetting. What?
It doesn't take forgetting because, for an example, my husband, if he drinks again, I will not forget about the last 22 years that he drank of our relationship. How can I forget about that? But what I can say is that he is human, and if he comes at it and says, "Holy crap, babe, I might say, okay, this is a huge, this is a huge speed bump here. This is going to be almost like starting over again, babe, with the trust, with the value, with the vulnerability, with like at the beginning of our relationship when he got sober, many times I couldn't trust him, but I can trust the universe that I believe in, that I was going to be okay. And so that's where he put in like a blow and go in his car. I had friends that respected me enough. His friends respected me enough that if something really was wrong, they would have said something to me. And so with that, there's that vulnerability that I would have to go back into saying, but if he started sliding down a slope again, I'm not going to forget. I almost left him days before he quit drinking. I might have to make that step. So it's not about forgetting, but it's about shifting the perception of, can I do this in a different way? Can I manage this in a different way? So let's say if we're working on anger, if I'm an angry person at a situation, I'm going to have to start saying, you know what, that's triggering me. I'm going to have to walk away for a minute. So that's my reset button with that with that situation. Because I don't want to take it out on that other person. So I'm going to have to say, you know what, this is triggering me. I got to walk away. And you walk away. And then you come back and say, thank you. Now we can talk. It's that part of learning ourselves, learning about ourselves, being vulnerable with ourselves to say, you know what, there's a pattern here. I don't like this pattern. And I've had that conversation. We're circling around again. I don't want to do the circle again because it goes into a nowhere place. So can we just stop for a minute? I'm going to go over here, you go over there, and then we'll come back.
So I'm curious to know, because you started out as a single child and you were very shy, and you didn't talk much, and you didn't talk much in school, and then you got married, and then you got divorced, and you got married, and you've got a couple of kids. You've had a normal life from all that aspect, but not
normal.
Yeah, but not very many people that I know of that I can say have changed completely. And your husband of 30 years has had to adapt to from a shy, quiet, reserved to the lady you are now, which you are none of those things. Then you're also very bright and intelligent. That must have scared the hell out of him when all of a sudden he figured out, oh shit, she's not as dumb, or she's smarter than I thought, or something, or that she is capable of doing all this kind of stuff. And then that gave you value as well.
He found out how empowered I was.
What'd you do?
It's not powerful, empowered.
Oh.
That I really started believing in myself. I really started telling myself, you got it. Now, does that mean that I'm always great at it or perfect at it? Heck no. My dyslexia really screws that up for me sometimes. There's faults that I do.
Everybody needs to be able to, okay, everybody could choose if they wanted to. They could choose to take a look at themselves, take a look at their gifts, take a look at why they're here, and they can work towards that in a real meaningful way. But so many people, explain how you did it, because so many people will look in the mirror and say, oh yeah, well, but that's easy, and I'm just a piece of crap anyway. How did you get past that?
I guess there's something in me that just keeps climbing up the hill. There's just something in me that, and I understand this, that because I've stepped into the astrology networking a little bit. So I understand that there's certain planets in certain areas that help me be me and help me be self-evaluating. I'm constantly self-evaluating. And even sitting here having this conversation, there's a part of me evaluating what I'm saying. So with that there's these moments where I am willing to be vulnerable enough with myself to say, oh crap, I didn't do that very well, did I? And as we do things like that, it's amazing. And here comes my husband with a dog bed. Hey, babe.
Hi there.
So this is my loving husband who has spent 30 years with me.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
Probably didn't bring your shampoo, did you?
Nope, I did not bring her shampoo. So
You
it's just one of those
already?
things.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah,
At the
no,
ocean.
it's just amazing how when we're working on things, it's just that self-evaluation. That's where we got to do things a little different. And not everybody's willing to do that self-evaluation, but I can tell you that that's the road to doing better. That's the road to doing better for thyself.
And some people don't have any idea how to even begin that process.
It's that, oh, I did that. Okay. What was the good part of that and the bad part of that? What can we do that's a little bit better and what's a little bit worse?
Mm-hmm.
And as we do things like that, you don't want to get a bath, Cleo, huh? Oh, so, as we walk through life, we have things that happen, and it's just that, okay, yeah, I could have done that a little differently, or yeah, I could have done something a little differently. And as we're working on things and as we're doing things, it's just amazing how when we can just be just that slight bit vulnerable and say, oh, and take away that 2x4 that beats ourselves up.
Yeah. Well, just like Cleo doesn't want to take a bath and is making that clear that she doesn't want to take a bath, a lot of people are not prepared to change because they don't really know who they are yet. How
Yes,
do
and
you, in
then
your work, get people to know who they are?
that's that part of just allowing that self-evaluation. Oh, in that moment, I was pretty darn good at doing that, wasn't I? Or in that moment, I could have learned to do that. Well, I could have done that a little differently. Next time I'll try to do better. And so as we're working on this and doing this, that self-evaluation, it's a practice made better. It's a practice made better. So as we do that better making, we do that moment as we move forward. I'm sorry, I can't read it. It's pretty small, and I'm concentrating
right.
on what I'm doing here.
That's all right. It just said Natasha can coach you to learn how to become more aware, which is
Oh, thank
and
you, Sue. Thank you. That's the one thing that I do enjoy doing is bringing those moments where it's like, why is that happening in my life? Oh, that's happening in my life because of ...
Mhm.
And but sometimes I don't know I can do that, but it's that personal conversation. It's that reaching out, being a little bit vulnerable, like in this moment, and saying outwardly, how can I know this is what's happening in my life? How can I shift this? How can I shift my perspective? It's that knowing that we're not doing wrong. But we can do differently better.
Very good.
We can do differently better.
Are you ready to help somebody here?
Yes.
Denise mentions in our session a couple of weeks ago, you helped me redefine my boundaries with my daughter. It helped me I am doing so much better, but she is escalating her behavior. That's a teenager for you. Can you
Yeah.
speak to, she's not a teenager? No. Oh, can you speak to that phenomenon that when somebody pulls energy back, the other person can react? Can discuss why of that and the best way to handle that.
Okay, I'm tuning into that a moment of somebody doing that. When we step back and as we work on ourselves, that makes somebody else responsible for themselves. And when we do that, there's going to be this cause and effect. And that's where I have an understanding right now. Thank you, Denise, for reaching out. That as we do this work, and I have an understanding right now, the planets are in a moment where our communication is getting a little awkward. And I can tell you that as Denise, I'm going to speak here, that as you are working on yourself and setting up new boundaries, that's part of stepping over and saying to them, right now, you're speaking to me in a tone that doesn't quite suit this situation right now. So can you please, and I'm going to walk away. And as we work on this, it's about creating a soft, kind boundary. That's not really working. Like, for an example is that when in the house, when I've had a child who's been upset, I say to them, I know you're upset. I want to help you. I'm going to walk away until you get over this hump, until you get over this peak of peak aggravation. And you walk away, shut the bedroom door, you go into the kitchen, you walk outside, you do something different to break the pattern. And as you change that pattern, they start learning, oh, wait a minute, I'm responsible for the energy that I'm in the room. They may not think that, but it's like, oh, yeah, I was kind of yelling, wasn't I? Okay. So as we find our own balance of walking into our own boundaries, we have to make sure that those boundaries don't come over from the other person. And so that's where we got to start being vulnerable enough to say, I'll be right back. And then you come back saying, okay, I'm willing to navigate this with you now. I'm willing to talk with you now. And if they're still doing that same interaction, you go, I love you. I have to come right back again. And, as we do that, and I can tell you, I know that sounds silly and I know that sounds simple, but it's a good way to not aggravate somebody else more because you're not feeding into that thing.
No, it's really important because some people like to argue just to argue. And if they'll get going, if you get going with them and they get going with you, then the argument, there's no end to it. It just continues and continues and continues. Somebody's got to be the adult in the room and break the contact and then reestablish it, right?
That's exactly it, because a lot of times when we're having a conversation, even though we're adults, it's our inner child that's screaming and yelling.
Of course, yeah.
It's because all of us have an inner child. And so that's that inner child that's screaming and yelling. And as we navigate through things and we're working on things, it's amazing how that if we can just say, my adult self is helping your child self shift a little bit different so that we can be more equally conversational. Okay, yeah. So there's that fine line. And as we're working on things, it's perfectly imperfect. We have emotions. Getting a little wet there, babe. And as we're working on things and doing things, it's amazing how we're going to be perfectly imperfect doing it. It's about, but it's the other person accepting that growth that we can have. That, oh, wait a minute. I saw that after, like the example of the other day, I was at work and the situation I had at work, somebody hadn't had a conversation with me. And I thanked them because I said, thank you for the tone in your voice. Thank you for coming to me and talking with me in this way, so that when they were doing something that we actually had a conversation about that wasn't going well, and they were doing well, I was able to say thank you. Because then there was that repercussion of, oh, maybe that's kind of more the tone I need to have with more people. It wakes somebody up sometimes when we can have these kinds of conversations. And it's about being vulnerable enough to say that I'm not perfect at it.
Well, it also tends to shut people up a little bit if you are the dog just have bath.
Well, you heard her shake.
Oh yeah,
I got a little. Luckily, she's really short haired.
She's, yeah, but that's good because the nothing smells worse than the ocean on a dog in the middle of the night.
Yes, yes, exactly. And she's done really good. She used to not like baths. And then like at our house, if I start walking in the bathroom saying you want a bath, she just politely walks in now. But we try to do it a good massage and stuff. But it's like anything that's alive, if we kind of just have this vulnerableness with it and work with it, it's amazing how things can shift. But
Sure.
it's also saying,
So when we're talking about your boundaries with another person and what Denise was talking about, you really do have to establish firm boundaries of places where you'll allow people to go and places where you're not going to allow people to go.
yeah, we teach people how to treat us.
That's true because nobody's going to treat you like you want to be treated if you don't know how to be treated. If that makes, I have to write that down and figure if I can say that right. But
I also have an understanding that us being like with Denise and her daughter, she was saying is that our children can undermine us fast. It's like I'm doing good, I'm doing good, I'm doing good. Oh, wait a minute, I just let my kid do that to me again, didn't I? Okay, practice doing that different. Practice doing that different the next time it comes around. And then if you notice that instead of the day later, half a day later, you're doing better. And then an hour later, you're doing better, and then in the middle of the conversation, you're going, oh, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that some of the people that are on the line with us have commented about how working with you has been beneficial for them.
I am so grateful for that because it is those moments where that's all I want to do is support and help. And we're all wanting to do a little different and do a little better. And it's just that practice to do better. And it's that awareness of it. And I really would love to help someone do that in a session or even here. I like doing this because it's almost like a radio. I was on the radio the other day and it's always fun to do these quick little things that can support somebody in a moment. And I'm grateful, Denise. Thank you for reaching out. And I hope that does help because I know that as we talk about boundaries, and boundaries are going to be pretty wonky coming up here. We're all going to be waking up into this new awakening after this COVID. And it's going to be amazing how we go through awakening into our new selves, into maybe an old life, or our newer selves that we've learned through COVID with being vulnerable, being alone, or having to be in our own minds for that long. And then you start having to work with other people. It's an energetic. Sometimes we have to energetically be aware that it's tiring to be around people after we're not, and it's part of that practice to do different. And as we do that, it's that keep you walking forward. We don't have to fall into old habits, but practice makes better.
It does indeed. And by the way, we've been talking with what's her name over there? She's a gorgeous person. She's an old married lady. Been married for 30 years. Yesterday was her anniversary. Natasha Venter is not our guest. It's her damn show. Shut up, Kevin. And I appreciate that because what I'm proposing to you guys is Susan and Denise and anybody else who was listening, call your friends, have them come on here. I've got a question for Natasha that we will comment it and she can answer those things for you. She can do it for a bunch of folks, and then also like and support this show because you're supporting Natasha at the same time. I appreciate that. And you know what? I'm going to make you go home early today. You get a short recess.
I get a short recess.
Yes, because this is your anniversary weekend, and you should not be spending it with me. So I
Well,
want.
I'm spending it because it's for the greater good, and my husband lovingly understands that, and I'm grateful for that he's allowing this, and that's the grace that we have with each other, which I'm grateful for. Is that when something calls for him to do, I say have fun, and then when I have something calls for me, he says have fun. So it's that blessing that we have, and I'm grateful for that. But I just want everybody to know that as we're going through these changes, remember we're perfectly imperfect, doing a practice to do better job. And that's all we can really expect of ourselves. And I know people struggle with expectations, and that is one of the hardest things to put down that wall and know that, things aren't going to be perfect. I'm looking outside, here at Ocean Shores, and there's a bunch of brush between us and the beach, and in its own way, it's beautiful because it's just nature, and nature's perfectly imperfect. So with that, the expectations are hard, yet at the same time, though, practice makes better. It will be helpful.
Hold on just a second. And Veronica's wishing you and yours a very happy anniversary.
Thank you so much, sweetie. I'm so grateful because I know that she's struggled through some things too, but we're all working to do better, and that's all we can say is that let me do better today, even if it's for 5 minutes. Let me do better today, even if it's for 5 minutes, and then maybe the next day we can do 10.
And I just wanted to let you know, by the way, Susan also sends her
Yes.
happy anniversary to you. I also want you to know that you have got a group of friends who adore you, who think the world of you, and they show up here on the show, and they put up with me so that they can get to talk to you. It's great fun. It really is, and you should be proud of the impact that you're having on people's lives.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for being here. That's the reason why I didn't listen to that 14-year-old girl who said I don't want to be here anymore. And I'm so grateful that I am now this woman who can say thank you, and I do want to be here to support.
And well, you need to be here to support. That's just the rule.
It is.
You're not allowed to do nothing else there, child.
No,
So,
I know.
is there anything else you'd like to add before I cut you off and make you go have fun?
I just want to say, please remember that you are loved. And if you can love yourself, that's even a greater gift. And when we're walking in life, please know that life is going to challenge us. It's part of it. But how can we do better even for that 5 minutes?
And really, it's honestly, that's all you got is that 5 minutes. Natasha Venter, go to Life Clarifications with Natasha every Wednesday at 4:00. Go to angelaclarifications.com and find out more about her and do some fun stuff with her. She can help. Trust me.
Yes.
Have a great day. Enjoy
You too.
your anniversary weekend.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody. Blessings to you.
Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report.